Greetings, friends. I wanted to share a really cool thing that I found actually while researching HEMA. So I'm going to leave in the description of this a link to the Wikipedia page on these, but I'm going to talk about them a bit in this video as well. They are called house books, or in kind of modern parlance, commonplace books. So these got started actually originally during the Italian Renaissance in the 15th century. And so basically what a commonplace book is it's similar in concept to a journal, sort of. With a journal, when you write in it, you're talking about yourself or things that you've done introspectively. You're thinking about how you relate to those things, or to people in your life, or whatever. The point of a commonplace book is, or a house book, is to basically to sort of keep a sort of a log of information that you have learned and obtained through time, practice, reading other books. I found this actually through Wiktenauer, and I'll leave a page to a couple of the interesting, or to one of the interesting books that I found there. It's called the Nuremberg House Book. The Nuremberg House Book is important to those of us who do HEMA because it actually shows several techniques for fighting, longsword, grappling, stuff like that. And what these people would do is that as they were learning to do stuff, they would write about it, about like their notes on the topic, and they would leave alchemical formulas, proverbs. They would draw pictures and leave descriptions of techniques of fighting, which is why they're important to us in HEMA. And they would do all kinds of stuff, and they kind of stayed popular all the way up through John Locke, the philosopher, wrote a book about them, about commonplacing, which is the act of writing in a commonplace book, as well as he kind of wrote about some other stuff in it. And they kind of spread with the Renaissance to the rest of Europe, and by the 17th century, they were kind of everywhere. And usually they're kind of specific to the person who wrote them. So a lot of times you'll go through them and there'll be very little of any use to you, but you might find a little tiny piece of information that's really neat. The Nuremberg House Book has some stuff that's like astrological, and some stuff in Latin. There's a little bit in Latin, some in German. So there's a lot of really neat stuff, and apparently several of them have been published. Others, the manuscripts of originals, they've been digitized and they're online, which is really cool. You can go look at them. And apparently it has kind of come back into vogue. People, especially, given the kind of the overload of information that very many of us frequently have, it's become a very useful tool for a lot of people to organize their notes and their thoughts about information as they find it, so that way they don't have to try to remember it. And while this very much seems kind of like a solution to a problem that should not have happened in the first place, I think that even if it's not being done to tone down the sheer amount of information that we're bombarded with on a daily basis, that it's an interesting way to just sort of log the stuff that we learn through our own experiences. Like notes about if I'm doing friction fire. If I found that there was a particular wood that worked really well, and I wanted to draw a sample of what some of that looked like, I could draw and explain this is the type and this is what I used it for, and this is where I found it, to use it as a future reference for yourself, so you don't have to remember, I found ash in that little clearing a mile north of town and it looks like this. And I was really good for making bows. Ash is good for bows. Um, so we can just write the information and then revisit it as a personal reference, which is really quite interesting. It's in a lot of ways, a lot of the features on our modern technology, like our phones, have kind of given us the ability to do that. But there is significant learning value in physically writing about something. So to that end, I went out. I bought this very inexpensive um, bound notebook at Walmart. It's got a little thing on it, and some pens. And I'm going to start keeping a house book. Why not? Um, so I thought it sounded like it might be interesting, fun, informative, and we'll see what happens. So I had initially looked at the possibility of making one, but I do not have access to the paper that I would like to use to do it. So at some point in the future, probably when this one is full, I will most likely end up making one. And in the meantime, I can get some practice with making leather books. But anyways, I just thought that there might be some interest in this really cool. It's a very historical thing that I learned about, and that I look forward to using and learning about and exploring its utility. So there will definitely be some stuff in the future about kind of the house book and going through as I make my own. And yeah, so that's kind of it. This was kind of short. Like I said, I'll leave links in the description to the Wikipedia page on Commonplace Books. It's got a lot of neat history of the book. It talks a little bit about kind of all the people that have written about them and some of them that have been found. And then I'll also leave a link to the Nuremberg House book on Wiktenauer.